moving on to the kind of audiences of racecourses, I read a lot about the differences in the ways that men and women were treated at each of these clubs, and that women only had particular abilities to train and things like that in the later stages in the jockey club. When did men and women become totally equal at both racecourses, and what were the differences before that in the way that they were treated?
Well, I referred briefly earlier to the fact that the actual club enclosure at Hurst Park and Sandown, both of them were the same, had a men's only membership, but women could be invited in by the member. As far as racehorse training is concerned and racehorse ownership, there were some very wealthy women who had racehorses, but they used to run them under pseudonyms. And one of the well-known ones that would be familiar to people is Lily Langtry, who was a favourite of Prince Edward before he became King Edward VII. That's it, yeah, Edward VII. And she raised her name. She was nicknamed, of course, by the press, the Jersey Lily, and she used to race her horses under the name of Mr. Jersey. So it sounded as though it was a man, not a woman, who owned them, but of course it was. And there were several other examples like that. The issue about trainers holding licenses became much more protracted, and it wasn't until the 1960s, in fact 4 years after Hurst Park closed, that a woman in Sussex called Florence Nagel, who had trained horses for many years, decided to take the Jockey Club to court, and eventually got a ruling in the Court of Appeal that basically said women should train racehorses in their own right. And up until then, Mrs. Nagel had to have her licence to train held by her head lad, which of course is nonsense, because the trainer is responsible, but the head lad, who was just an employee of the yard, had to have his name on the licence. So it was a real subterfuge to get around the rules.